What's up, guys, and welcome to a very special Shifty Crab Podcast. You've had the interview with myself. You've had the interview with Mr. Terry Jeffs. But today we are going to sit down and have a one-on-one interview with the best beard in the business, Mr. Vince Haley. Vince, first of all, hello. How are you?
Hello. I'm doing great. It's podcast day. It's also my turn to sit in the hot seat for an interview.
You are in the hot seat. We have no Terry today, but he'll be back for the news this Friday. But today we are putting you in the hot seat. So are you ready for this, Vince, today? Are you nervous? Have you been up all night?
Oh, of course. It's not like this was maybe potentially a last minute thing or anything.
Not at all. Not
No.
at all. We're definitely
organized.
prepared for this. We are so prepared. Look at the book of empty paper notes. We are ready to go. First of all, a little bit of housekeeping. Nope, there wasn't a podcast last week. We had audio issues. Basically, my mic decided not to work, but I have a brand spanking new, beautiful microphone right here. So hopefully everything is sorted. We will have the news back with you this week as well. Newsbreak will be back, and we'll be covering the PlayStation State of Play, which is going to be happening. Surely there's some good news coming out of that, and not just Deathloop, which we know is predominantly going to feature there.
Of course.
And then we'll be back to the podcast with all three of us next week. But first, as always, Mr. Vince Haley.
Yeah.
What are you drinking?
What am I drinking? Oh, come on. Same answer every time. Of course, I've got my Blue Moon ready to go.
I need to speak to Blue Moon. We need a sponsorship.
We do. We need a sponsorship.
Need a sponsorship from Blue Moon. You drink them all the time. We need to get you some free Blue Moon.
We do.
That's my aim for this year.
Give me a mini fridge full of Blue Moon. Just to have in this room.
I was expecting one bottle. One bottle is what I was expecting to get. But we'll aim big. We'll aim big.
Shoot for the stars. Yeah.
Lucozade Sport. No alcohol today. Yeah. Saving that for tomorrow when England play football. Soccer for you uninitiated.
That's American.
Second question. Very important question, Vince. What have you been playing?
Oh, man. What have I been playing? Well, we got off the podcast that didn't go up on Tuesday. And I had been playing Bloodborne. I was down to the last two bosses. And I am proud to say I have beaten those last two bosses and I have finished Bloodborne. I've done it.
Congratulations.
I've done it, everybody. And let me tell you, that first fucking boss fight with Gehrman was rough. It took me so many attempts. It was so difficult. And if you try to look online, this is the part I kind of hate about the Soulsborne community. Because if you look online for any tips, any tricks or whatever, for maybe timing on some attacks, or maybe you should dodge this way or dodge under his attacks or whatever. Most of the tips and recommendations you'll find on message boards or forums, maybe in Reddit, is all just just parry. Just parry him. Oh, he's so easy. Just parry. Thanks. I didn't figure that out, that I actually have a weapon that's main purpose is parrying attacks. Cool. You're so helpful, people.
I know.
But
it's and I hate when you get shamed as well. And when people are oh, just play the game and don't ask for help. Why are you commenting on this message board?
Right. Why are you even here? That's the worst part. Because obviously in Dark Souls and Bloodborne and whatever, there are NPC summons to help you with bosses in case you're having trouble. They're there for that reason. So if you're struggling with a boss, there's sometimes NPCs that can help you. But then there are people oh, well, why did you use an NPC summon? You can't be the boss by yourself. No. I'm having a hard time. I just want to be done with this. Fuck off.
Yeah.
Leave it alone.
I totally agree. Yeah. If I want to have help, I'll have help.
Right.
Here's a question for you. I suppose it's for Souls style games in general. What's the ratio for you from enjoyability to frustration? Like, where are we looking? Is it a 50-50 or?
It depends on like, you know, with the Garamond fight, like it got frustrating because he hits like a truck, and his combos are usually like 2 or 3 hit combos. So it really varies on whether, okay, this time he's going to do a 2-hit combo or this time he switches up to a 3-hit combo. It really varies with that window of like, this is either going to really piss me off or I'm going to be like, okay, I know I fucked up. I can go back and do it and learn from my experiences. That's where kind of the enjoyment comes in from it, because it's like, oh, this boss isn't that hard. I just kind of fucked up a bit, or I maybe dodged too late, or something else happened. I'm just like, okay, I can learn from that, move on. But some boss fights that are just kind of bullshit, and you see it in like Dark Souls 1. There's a boss called the Capra Demon, and he's like a wall for a lot of people. If you hit that boss, it will piss you off because his boss arena is like so small, and it's not just him in there. There's 2 other enemies in there that are like dogs, which are really fucking fast, and it gets frustrating because there's times when you go to turn the camera and your camera's just in a wall and you can't see shit, which is super fucking annoying. But like, that's frustrating. But there's others that are just kind of enjoyable. Like, I obviously get super tense and super anxious in boss fights, but when you finally beat that boss and you get that kind of relief or that release of tension, it's like, yes, I can move on. I can progress. This is great. This is fun again. So it might be about 50-50.
Okay. I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a huge Souls fan, a Souls-like game fan. Could you theoretically, on one of the games that you know the most, and if let's say you did a couple of playthroughs to familiarize yourself, could you do a playthrough without dying, or is that just basically nigh on impossible?
There's some, like, I mean, obviously people do no death runs, like no hit runs and stuff like that.
No hit runs?
Yeah, people do that. Like, it's insanity. But like, sometimes like people mod it to be like godlike, kill things in one hit and things like that. So people have like that bit of fun with it. But yeah, some people do like no death runs, no hit runs. There was a guy who did like a no bonfire run in Dark Souls, which, if you're not well versed in Dark Souls, a bonfire is basically where you respawn. Okay. So at first you have to light the bonfire, sit at it, and next time you die, you'll spawn at that bonfire. So there was a person who did a no bonfire run. So basically means he couldn't die unless he wanted to be sent like all the way back to the beginning of the game, or the game will just restart it. Depends. Like, that's insanity. That's pretty much like a no death run.
But can you still save the game at that point? Not to reload, so in case you wanted to turn it off, is that allowed in those, or can you only save it at a bonfire? Like,
you can kind of only save at a bonfire. That's like your only real checkpoint.
This person had to do it in one go.
Essentially, yeah, in one go.
And how long would this take? If as a very good player with no deaths, what is how long did it take? Do you know? Like,
oh, I don't know. Like, I listened to a podcast forever ago called Bonfire Side Chat, where they just like go through and explain like the thesis of the like different areas in the games and like stuff like that. And they had him on, which the first run he did of it, he fucked up. He was like streaming and looked at chat and accidentally rested at a bonfire. So he had to do it all over again. But I don't remember how long it took him to do it. It had to be like at least 8, maybe 10 hours, maybe to beat Dark Souls if you're really good. There's obviously like speed runs and stuff of it, like to do it.
Ridiculous.
No.
Nothing.
No,
I don't know,
it's
man.
rough.
I think I've got to a point where I just want games to be enjoyable.
Yeah.
Like, I used to finish games and then I'd maybe go up to hard mode or whatever. And now I don't. I'm just like, I'll do New Game Plus or whatever, but I'm just like, no, I'm good at normal. I'm good at how the game is intended to be played. I don't want to make it easy. I don't want to make it harder. I'll just play it as it is. Like, I can't imagine even playing a Souls game anyway, because it's meant to be gruelingly hard. Like, and then going, do you know what? This isn't hard enough. Like, I'm gonna now make it even harder for myself. Like, no. You're a braver man than I am. Like, to even finish those games. Is that kind of what you've been playing, or is there anything else on the list? Or
so I finished that, and obviously I want to start Dark Souls 3 because that's next on my list of Souls games. But before I do that, I wanted to wrap up Resident Evil Village.
Okay.
So I've jumped back into that, and boy, I really like Resident Evil Village. I don't understand a lot of people's criticisms.
Yeah, it's got mixed reviews, hasn't it?
Yeah, but I'm like, this is very enjoyable. Like, this last area I went through, I'm just gonna call like the dollhouse, because it's this creepy mannequin that is absolutely terrifying on its own. But to make it worse, she kind of kidnaps you at one point. Like, the screen goes dark and you lose all of your weapons and healing items.
Oh.
And puts you like in this escape room style situation. And there's, not to get many spoilers for Resident Evil Village to anyone out there watching, but there's an enemy that chases you that absolutely made my skin crawl. If anybody's played Resident Evil Village, you know absolutely what I'm talking about. It was fucking terrifying.
Oh no!
It was worse than being chased by Lady Dimitrescu in the castle. But that whole time, I was like, "Fuck, this is unsettling in the worst way."
Oh no!
But yeah, I'm playing Resident Evil. The only complaint I have about Resident Evil Village, before we kind of bounce off that, is the loot system they have now. So like, enemies drop loot and like crafting items, stuff like that you can sell at a vendor to get, healing items, ammunition, stuff like that, which kind of takes me out of it a little bit, because in previous Resident Evil games, like Resident Evil 7, you could scarcely find ammo. So you're either like trying your best to conserve ammo by like dodging enemies, stuff like that. You didn't want to waste ammo trying to kill something, or like desperately searching for ammo when you didn't have it. But since you can buy ammo and you can craft ammo in Village, it kind of takes it that little bit of tension out of it.
Yeah,
because I have a lot of ammo. Like, there's never a point where I haven't run out of ammo yet. Maybe that's being just still being that conservative. Like, I need to hoard all my bullets. I don't need to waste a shot on anything. But I don't know. That's kind of like taking me out of it a little bit. But that last area, the dollhouse, was creepy as shit, but I kind of loved it. That's probably the most horrifying thing I've seen in a game, or like even like horror movies. Horror movies don't like super bother me, but that no, thank you, never again, please.
Like, I like it when a game. I know some people don't. I like it when a game gives you really limited ammo. That's one of the things I love about The Last of Us and The Last of Us Part 2, where ammo is scarce to an extent. More so, I think, in the first one than the second one, if I remember rightly. But you have to really think about what you're doing with your ammo. I love that. Like,
it makes it like, it takes an easily doable situation and makes it more strategic almost.
Yeah, there's a layer of complexity to like, I could shoot all these people, but then I've got no ammo.
Yeah.
Like, And especially in a game like The Last of Us, you don't know what's next.
No, you have no. It's like you're like wanting to make sure you're.
Times when you're like, okay, I can use some ammo on this. There's very few times. Like,
very.
But yeah, so I like that about it. So it's a shame that they've kind of played with that a little bit, because I think that's one of the things that would attract me to this sort of game. Don't get me wrong, absolutely won't play it. Would terrify the shit out of me. But
Yeah.
I do like I like the idea of Resident Evil games more than I would like to play them, I think.
Oh yeah.
Because I think I'd be too scared to play them. Like, don't do well at horror games.
Yeah, I mean, I thought like at first Village wouldn't be that bad because I was in the castle being hunted by like vampires. So like that's not too bad. That's not too scary. But boy, was that wrong in the dollhouse. Holy shit.
That's where it all turned for you.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
There was a game, and I think this was on PS2, and I'm trying to remember. It wasn't a horror game, but I was trying to think of this the other day, and it was a multiplayer game. Well, it could be a multiplayer game, and one of you controlled the movement, and the other person controlled the telekinetic powers.
Oh,
So
interesting. Yeah.
You had to work together. One of you would be moving, and the other one would be dragging people, pulling people, moving stuff, mind reading people, and stuff like that. And I cannot remember what this game was called, but you would have to work together. So, like, my friend did the whole game, like, controlling the characters. So would move the camera, would walk, would work out where we were going, and I just basically have to deal with whatever was coming. It was such a good concept for a game, but like I can never remember the name of it. Never remember the name of it, and it was such a good game, and that had that sort of mechanic added such a complexity to what was a relatively simple game. Like made it a lot harder, and it had like a horror theme to it, but it wasn't horrifically bad. Like, but it had that horror theme to it. But it just added a level of complexity. Like, I love it when games just do something a little bit different.
Yeah, I mean, it makes it stand out more in your mind, right?
Like, yeah, exactly. I remember that, and I was like, I don't know, 13 maybe, like or something like that. And I remember it as one of my fond memories of games at that time. But is that all you've been playing, or should I talk about mine?
Yeah, that's pretty much it. What have you been playing?
One game.
Let me guess.
Like,
Red Dead Redemption 2.
Red Dead Redemption 2. Like, I tried to hang on. I know we spoke about it before, that I had this itch, and I was gonna wait until to see if there was an announcement of a Red Dead Redemption 2 remastered for the next gen, like they've done with the GTA 5, which I'm sure will come at some point.
Right.
But I couldn't wait any longer, so I jumped in there, and it's just such a good game. Like, I know you haven't played it.
No, I haven't.
But it's such a good game.
You think you're going to finish it this time around?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because obviously I finished it the first time.
Right.
All the way through. But I kind of rushed the game because I didn't want spoilers, and I was just enthralled in the story. So there was some side bits that I missed. I didn't explore the game or play the game really how it was supposed to be played. My second playthrough, I was doing everything methodically, and other games came out and I kind of left it. This time I'm doing a balance. Like, I'm not going for any trophy, like any platinums or anything like that. So I'm not trying to collect every flower, but I just want to enjoy every aspect of the story that I can. So, and I'm loving it. Absolutely loving it. The game is, obviously, it has the natural upgrades as a current gen game.
Right.
So it looks great, sounds great, but man, you forget how beautiful that game is, how realistic the game is in a lot of aspects, how the voice acting is unbelievably good in that game, and how the music and the score is so well done. Like, it's just it is a modern tragedy, like, of the Western, like, it's a hard game to describe for me, because I understand people's, that was really bad grammar. I understand people's, I understand, man. Like, no, I understand people's issue with the game's pacing being slow compared to a GTA, or even compared to the first Red Dead, because I think they rushed the first Red Dead a little bit. Like, have you played Red Dead 1? You've played Red Dead Redemption.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I played Red Dead Redemption, yeah.
So, if you take the aspects of Red Dead Redemption, like all the cool mechanics and stuff like that, getting your horse, you know, like you can rear the horses, all of that, all that's obviously there. But in so much more detail, like there's a weight management, for example, in the sense of your weight, you can be underweight, overweight. Then and it has effects. So if you're underweight, then your stamina increases, but your health decreases. You can take less damage, and the bigger you are, you can take more damage, but your stamina decreases. Temperature, you have to wear the right clothes in the right climates, otherwise that has effects. But your horse gets dirty, you get dirty, you have to bath. If I'm hunting, like, there's the level of detail. So for example, if I'm hunting and maybe the wind is blowing with me and I haven't bathed in a few days, I have a stronger smell coming off me that will alert animals quicker.
Oh, wow.
So it's so detailed. Like, I'm not on about the comical, the balls get smaller in the snow for the horses and stuff like that. I'm on about from a gameplay mechanic, but you can forget all that, because that really isn't what matters about this game. The story is so good. Like, it is an epic of a story that you can only really put up there for me with a Last of Us, or Last of Us Part 2, in the sense that it is not supposed to be a happy story.
Right.
It is supposed to be a story about cowboys living in a world where cowboys don't exist. The same as Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
So obviously this is set before Red Dead Redemption.
Yeah.
Like, and it's that the life of a cowboy having to fit into a different parameter, and how some people are unwilling to do that, and about blindly following people, and without giving anything away, and I'm not talking about the story in any way, there's a morality system, which I think there was in Red Dead, I'm not sure, but there's a morality system. You're either good or you're bad, like, by your actions, and it has actual effects within the game. You start off not even neutral, more in the bad side. And if you play the game in a good way, you see that conflict, and small things change. For example, if you're killing someone, and sometimes if you get a headshot, like with your pistol or something like that, it'll zoom in. It'll show like a little cinematic of the headshot. As you get more honorable, is how they say it, you don't see the headshot. The camera faces you firing the shot. You don't see the headshots. Like,
interesting.
They change little things. Your dialogue changes. Your actions change. For example, you can, if someone sees you commit a crime, they might run and try and tell the sheriffs. Like, now you can just shoot them in the head if you want, and hope that which can set up really fun train reactions. You might shoot that person, then another person sees that, so then you're just basically shooting your way back to the town, trying to stop all these people like getting to the sheriff. There's like a litany of like bodies just all the way down these side streets. But or you could like run up to them and threaten them, Like you could leave it and take the consequences. You can try and talk to them and calm them down, or you could beat the shit out of them and you can grab them. And it's so visceral, the game, and it makes you do things that you really don't want to do, but the character also doesn't want to do them, but knows that they're very good at it. So, like one of the early things is you got to collect some debts, typical GTA thing, and you go into this house and this family has no fucking money. And the guy has nothing, doesn't really speak much English. I think he's German. And Arthur Morgan, like your character, basically has to threaten him and beat the shit out of him to get this money. And it's really early on. And this is where you start to make those decisions because you can take it too far. You could you can find novel ways of doing stuff. Like instead of beating someone up, maybe you just threaten them. Simple things like if you're fishing, if you throw the fish back, you get a little bit of honor instead of killing the fish. But sometimes you need to fish because you need to hunt to feed the camp.
Right.
And if you don't do those things and you don't do chores in the camp, for example, like you don't have to do the chores, but they're there, you get a little bit of honor. The camp will start to notice this and say stuff to you. And for example, major missions in the game, like major things can happen while you're not there. So I was riding from the town, which is Valentine, one of the towns, and I was just finished another mission and I was on my way to go do something else when one of the people in my camp just rides up to me. It's not a cutscene. I'm in a different thing and says, so-and-so's been captured. We need to go get him. So, and then all of a sudden it says, do you want to go with or leave him alone? And I get the option to go. So you go with them and it opens up this whole new, big story arc. There's that I could have just left.
Yeah.
The game has so much detail. And as a storytelling beat, I would implore, and I'm talking to you specifically here, Vince, because I know you've not played it.
No.
And I know that it's a long game. But if you like The Last of Us, the story of The Last of Us, especially Joel's stories and then into Ellie's story in the second one, and Abby's as well.
Right.
You have to play this because forget the gameplay, which is really good. The story alone is probably the best Western story I have ever seen. In film, TV, film, in books. It is so good. If you're a fan of Red Dead Redemption, this is such a love letter to Red Dead Redemption. And you see things because there are obviously crossover places because they're set in the same world. And you see things and it's like, I know what that becomes, like buildings being built or something. It's incredible. Honestly. And then the epilogue, which I will not mention anything about, is worth it just for the epilogue. Because it's incredible. It is the best epilogue I've ever seen in a game.
Interesting. Okay.
I loved it. Some people didn't. But I loved it. And the epilogue, may I point out, is a couple of hours long. It ain't a 10-minute thing.
Yeah, no.
It's
the first Red Dead epilogue, right? Or is it maybe a mission?
Yeah, when you play as Thingy, as Jack.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, no. But that theme is there, in a way, nothing like the same thing. But whereas Jack's was just kind of, here you go, there's one thing you can kind of do. No, this epilogue is no, this is how we get from A to B. So I implore you at some point, sit down and enjoy this game.
Yeah, it goes up on sale pretty often. So maybe
it's on
next time it's on
PlayStation
Zelda.
now, as of today.
Well, I don't have PlayStation
And
now.
I know you don't have a PlayStation, but
I have a PlayStation. PlayStation 4.
You can play it on PlayStation 4.
Sure.
But it must be circling around Games Pass or even close to that, surely.
See, it was on Games Pass for a while, like a few months ago, but I never downloaded it. Then it like left. So
Anyway,
missed out a little bit on that.
that's my Red Dead preach. But that's not why we're here, Vince.
That's fine.
We are here today.
Mm-hmm.
It sounds like I'm doing a wedding. But we are here to have a one-on-one interview with yourself, the best beard in the business. People have been asking questions. They want to know more about you. So we are going to go. Sure. We have a program in England called This Is Your Life.
Okay.
So we are going to start at the beginning and talk through. We'll keep it quite linked to gaming throughout. We'll keep coming back to it.
Oh, yeah.
But get to know more about the real you. If you're all right with that.
Yeah, sure.
First of all, very easy question.
Right.
Where were you born?
Where was I born? I was born in America, within North Carolina. That's where I was born.
And whereabouts in North Carolina? Where is North Carolina in the map of America?
In the map of America, it's on the East Coast.
The East Coast. Do you have sea?
East Coast. No. Well, we do have sea. That's roughly like maybe 2-3 hours from where I am now currently. So it's a decent drive, you know. Not like next door or anything, but it's a pretty decent drive.
Is it good? Is it a good beach?
You know, funnily enough, I've never. Well, no, that's not true. I went to North Carolina beach like once in grade school, and that was for like a field trip or whatever. Like 5th grade field trip.
Mm-hmm.
Usually they do something big for like the 5th graders because then you move on to middle school and shit. But most of my beach going has been to like South Carolina because there's Myrtle Beach down there, which I've been to pretty much every summer except obviously like this past summer, summer of 2020. It's usually where we vacation mostly.
Are you going to be heading there this year?
Maybe not. I mean, we'll kind of see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, all COVID and lockdown aside, like we didn't really go on vacation much last year. No. And we're still kind of like weighing the options this year. My wife and I are both fully vaccinated at this point. Mm-hmm. But there's obviously the Delta strain to worry about, which is kind of making its big impact, at least on the West Coast. Maybe like flaring up now here on the East Coast. Who knows? Who knows what happens?
That good old Delta strain that is the big enigma in all of this.
It really is.
Yeah. What's your? I know we've spoke loosely about this on one of the very, very early podcasts. What's like your earliest memory of gaming? What was the first game that you remember playing?
The first game I remember playing would have been Super Mario Bros. On the NES. Because for some reason or other, my grandmother had an NES. And she had that pretty much set up in like her office in her house.
Right.
Like when she'd have me over to like watch me while my mom was working or something, like I'd occasionally launch up the NES and play some Super Mario Bros. And just like have no idea what I'm doing because I don't know how to play that game. I still kind of don't know how to play Super Mario Bros.
No.
Yeah.
Like,
old games are hard.
I think I do, but then you see people playing and go, oh, that's how it's supposed to be played. Okay.
Yeah. People can beat us in like 45 minutes. All right. Wow.
So, were you hooked at that point when you started playing it, going, this is something I really enjoy? Or was this kind of like, okay, that's something? And then it was later on that you kind of really got into gaming?
It was mostly a like that's something kind of thing. Because like it was something to do aside from, just kind of sit around and watch TV for a while. I think when I really got into it was probably the original PlayStation. May have been one of the first consoles I had that was like my own. Um, and even then, I'd play like I didn't even really have a memory card to start off with, so I'd be like continually like playing the first world of Spyro or Jack and Daxter. No, Jack and Daxter was PS2. Never mind. But yeah, like Spyro or I don't even think I played Crash back in the days. A couple of the like random games. I did have, however, like the How the Grinch Stole Christmas game for the original PlayStation. Like this was like old. So,
Yeah.
like because I didn't have a memory card, I'd just keep playing those first few levels over and over again and like kind of had fun with it. But like my first like real like I'm a gamer now essentially moment was the original Xbox. Both had like a Nintendo 64, but played it kind of seldomly and didn't have any games for it. But Halo was the thing that got me into like I want to play this every day for the rest of my life kind of thing. Like that's what got me into it pretty big because like I loved it. Somehow it like connected with me like this is what games are, and then it just kind of snowballed from there.
Okay, a lot to take in there. We're going to go back a little bit. So the first console you owned was the PlayStation 1. Is that correct? What made you get that? Was that just a gift that was bought for you that you didn't ask for, one, or was this something that you were starting to kind of want to get into gaming, or how did that come about?
It was so my cousin got one for Christmas. I was like, that's pretty cool. I kind of want one too. Like it's the thing, like I see that someone else is getting it and I'm like kind of interested in it. And I get one, maybe a couple games. I think it's like a bundle with like 2 games I can't remember because this was obviously years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm not that old, but still. Yeah, it's kind of like I see this, I kind of want it. I don't know what it's about, but I ended up getting one and enjoying it. Like I would come home from school and play with it like maybe an hour, maybe 2 sometimes, depending.
But it wasn't until the big monster, the fridge, like was that something that you wanted in advance? You'd sit it and gone, okay, I really want this, or was it kind of the same situation, like, oh, well, I guess I'll get it at some point? And
yeah, it was kind of the same situation because like my uncle got one actually, and I saw like him playing Halo and everything. He was like, check this out, you might like it. And so we played a bit of co-op and everything like that. I was like, I really want this because this is awesome. And so I asked my mom, like for my birthday or something, I got an Xbox, and Halo was the only game I had for a while until I started getting into like Knights of the Old Republic and a bunch of other original Xbox games. I like even in the back of my head, I can remember a few of the games that I really enjoyed, but never got like sequels or anything like that. That I had very obscure games.
like, God, throw a few out.
Like Alter Eco. That's a game.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah.
Advent Rising, an RPG style game.
I remember that. Yeah.
Yeah.
They were good games, man.
They were actually really good games. Pariah, I kind of remember. I don't know what that game's about. Yeah.
I remember the box. I don't remember the game.
No. And of course, Half-Life 2. Picked up Half-Life 2. That started my love for that series. Of course.
So you'd gone from PS1. Did you say you had the N64 in between as well, or do you just play the N64?
Yeah, I had the N64 between as well, and a PlayStation 2 because I had the original PlayStation when I get PlayStation 2 and play like a handful of those games.
Yeah,
like there were like smaller steps between like a few games that I liked, and then Xbox really was like, I love gaming. Like this is what I like to do in my pastime now.
So you said Halo was the one that really like, okay, this is a game changer. This is
Mhm.
what I do now, sort of thing. What other games on the original Xbox kind of were pulling you as well in the same sort of way? Or was it just Halo? That was all you were focused on at first?
All I was focused on at first was Halo. Like that was the like driving game for me.
Yeah.
I think I played through it so many times. I don't even remember how much I've played the original Halo, and even Halo 2 when that was kind of like the tail end of the Xbox life cycle. That and probably Knights of the Old Republic, because I think I sat down and played a lot of Knights of the Old Republic and Knights of the Old Republic 2. Those were kind of like technically 4 big games that I really spent time on in the Xbox.
Yeah. Knights of the Old Republic is such a good game, man.
Such a game. I'm so glad it's coming back in some kind of capacity.
Eventually, yeah. We'll get there. But so you played the Xbox, you played the shit out of Halo, and KOTOR as well. Where did you go after Xbox? Like after the original Xbox, was it straight to 360? Did you take a GameCube on the way? Where did we go?
I did pick up a GameCube on the way. Like GameCube was like, it was something that I like because Metroid Prime. Like I had like the Game Boy Advance in between as well, and I kind of played those occasionally. I remember being like
a GameCube. I did not like the GameCube.
The controller is so weird on it. Like I don't understand why people love that controller for things. I still to this day do not understand how to use a GameCube controller to play anything. Like the Xbox controller and the PlayStation controller made so much sense with the dual analog sticks and how those are used. But you sit a GameCube controller in front of me, I'm just like, why is the A button so big? What are these other 2 buttons up here for? Why is the B button so tiny? What's the point of it even? Like,
it's a weird controller. It's Nintendo being weird. Nintendo.
Yeah. Nintendo continues to be Nintendo till this day.
That'll be controversial. I don't like the N64 controller either.
Oh, me either. Speaking of other controllers that confuse the shit out of me, yeah.
I hate that controller so much.
No.
Like I don't know why it's got such a rarity to it that people just love it. Like, and I'm just like, no, not for me. No.
It makes no sense. Like, why are there 3 handles on it to hold the controller in the first place? Why is the joystick in the center of it?
Yeah.
And
it doesn't make sense.
Why are there like 10 buttons on it? Just
going back to it is really hard as well. I think about a year ago, maybe a little bit longer, I went to some friends' houses, and his name's Adam as well, actually, and he is the biggest collector of he has a man cave that's like incredible, like loves James Bond, as well as many other things. And he had the N64. He's like, let's play GoldenEye.
Yeah.
And man, I could not remember how to use that controller. I was just like, what the fuck do I do with this? Like we've come so far, and I could not work out. I was getting killed left, right, center. Like I'd had a few drinks, so that wasn't helping either. But it was hard, man. Like I can't do it anymore.
It's gotta be because Nintendo don't know how to do controllers. They've done better, like with
iterations.
The Switch. The Switch is probably the best controller Nintendo's ever made,
especially as a handheld. It's great.
It's so good.
But they don't think about some stuff like for example, when you split the Switch obviously into Joy-Con controllers and you hold them sideways you're playing with someone who maybe doesn't know where the buttons are. So if you say to them press A and they're like, there's no letters on this one, and I'm like, okay, press right or press down, whatever it is, and like the L and R, and it's I was just like, okay,
it's a nightmare.
Yeah, it's so difficult. Like, and I know this from this weekend because I went to my brother-in-law's and we were playing Mario and Sonic Olympics, but everyone was playing, and we were trying to explain it to people. Like I was saying the buttons, and they were like, "Well, where's that on here?" And I'm like, "No, it's not that one. It's this one, this and this." And it was.
Yeah,
I was like, "Man, Nintendo, don't make it easy."
No, they don't. And plus, like, I'm gonna say it because I'm an Xbox player. The A button is the bottom button, like on an Xbox controller, but on a Switch controller, the A button is the right button.
Yeah.
Like, no, that's insanity. Stop doing that.
And
switch it,
they
please.
always use the A button as the OK button. So I'm always going back because
they
do it to fuck you up. Like they do. There's no rhyme or reason behind it. Like, oh yeah, they're gonna keep pressing this, but it's not that. Like we're gonna get them.
No, it's so frustrating.
Like I can work it out between an Xbox and a PlayStation when they say press X because I'm versed in both. It's fine. Right. Maybe the odd time I might press A by mistake and I'm like, oh no, wait, this. But on Nintendo, I'm like, continuously, like
always.
Because it'd be like pressing B to OK things and not go back.
Yeah,
like
makes no sense.
Don't understand it.
It's so backwards from what I know. Like,
well, Nintendo have shown today how backwards they are. So, but anyway,
they have.
Great OLED screen there, Nintendo. Anyway,
720p OLED screen.
So
perfection.
You. So you had the GameCube and the Game Boy Advance and stuff like that in between, but on the actual consoles, you went from the Xbox to where?
The 360.
The 360.
Of course, the
360. Did you get a PS3 as well down the line, or did you avoid the PS3?
Down the line, because there were absolutely games I wanted to play on that because I was late to the party on a lot of things. With on the PlayStation side, I was an Xbox diehard fan. Like I had so many. Like I obviously dealt with the Red Ring of Death on like 2, maybe 3 systems before they released like the newer models and everything.
Was it the Elite? Was that the first Elite?
It was the Elite or the S model. I can't remember. Yeah. Or the Slim, as they called it. Yeah. And that's when Gears of War happened. And that's obviously kind of, taken over a little bit. But before all that, it was kind of like they had a demo disc for the Xbox 360 at some point. And on that disc was 2 games I specifically remember. Quake 4 and Condemned Criminal Origins.
Oh, yeah.
Those 2 demos I played so much.
Condemned was great.
Condemned was great. Like that was one of my favorite games on the Xbox 360 for the longest time. Like I played that demo, I was like, I need this game. Like I need both of these games. And that kind of kicked off my 360 love. Then obviously Halo 3 and then the Gears trilogy, all that like cemented like my reasoning for having a 360. I loved it.
Was the 360 a launch buy for you, or was it later down the line?
It was maybe within that first year.
Yeah.
I mean, people want to complain now that like PS5s and Xbox Series X are hard to get a hold of. But it was the same for the 360 back in the day. Like that was really hard to get a hold of when it first launched.
Yeah.
So
that was because you were still dealing mainly in store at that point as well. So there was pre-orders and waiting lists. It wasn't like you didn't have Amazon being what it is, going, we have everything all the time. Like, but I remember. What did I got I didn't get either of them at launch, but the PS3 was the one. Oh no, actually, the 360 is what I got first, and I remember having to wait a little while for that one. But anyway, so you got the 360.
Yep.
And
360.
What was like your launch game? What were the games that you first played on the 360, if you remember? What was that? What was the big title that you dived into?
Those first 2 games, Condemned, Criminal Origins, and Quake 4.
Ones,
They were my first 360 games, and I think I played Condemned way more than I did Quake 4. Just because like
choice.
there was something about that game that was just so good. I think I may have played through it so many times, but don't have all the achievements for. Even though this was back when developers didn't really know like how are we gonna do achievements. Yeah. And so I think it's one of the only games out there besides like Xbox Live Arcade games that they did later that doesn't have a full 1,000 gamer score. I think it's sitting at 960 in total.
So annoying.
Right? Like that's all the achievement totals on that, which is insane. But yeah, that was back when they had no idea what to do for achievements. And so there's a lot of really easy achievement games in the early 360 days and a lot of really fucking hard ones.
Oh,
I think, what was it, Ghost Recon Advanced Warfighter? There's an achievement for being in the top of the leaderboard in the world.
Yeah.
I'm just like, why?
Nope.
Why would you do this?
That's such an easy achievement to get if you're in the first 10 people playing that game.
Yeah.
And then after that, you haven't got a chance. But yeah, so you were playing those games. Did you delve into the world of Oblivion early on in the 360? Because that was almost launch title, wasn't it? Oblivion.
Almost, yeah. Because that was one like I didn't have any history with Elder Scrolls or anything. I didn't play Morrowind on the original.
I hadn't played Morrowind or anything. No.
But a lot of my gaming knowledge, as we'll probably find out through this podcast, comes from my uncle, who was a big gamer. Yeah. And he showed me Oblivion, and I loved it. I loved Oblivion. I have all the achievements in Oblivion and its DLC because I love that game that much. Yeah.
Did you become a vampire?
Probably at some point. I don't know if I did or not. I don't think
I definitely joined the Dark Brotherhood.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Dark Brotherhood for sure. Yeah.
I definitely became a vampire.
Definitely.
But yeah, I remember Oblivion being a game changer for open world.
Oh yeah, because that
games, it was incredible.
You go back and look at that game, like everybody talks about how good Skyrim is and everything, but I still have really fond memories of Oblivion and how amazed I was that like this is how games can be. Like you can go anywhere you want and do whatever. It was great.
Oblivion walked so Skyrim could run, basically. Well,
for sure.
Oblivion walked so Skyrim could jog. Like
jog to each new console.
Yeah, and just traipse along, like because that game looks old now. Well, it is old, obviously, but so Oblivion was one of the early ones. Then obviously we're gonna talk. Like I'm trying to hold off on it, but we are gonna obviously talk about like Gears of War.
Of course.
But you had Halo 3 as well. Was that on the 360? Oh, yeah. Did that come before Gears of War, or was that after the first Gears of War? Off the top of your head,
that was around the same time. They were both 2007. So obviously, like,
were you big into like looking online, looking in magazines about what was coming out, or were you kind of just like word of mouth?
That was definitely like cool. I had watched the E3 demo for Gears of War.
Yeah.
And I was like, this looks incredible. Like I may have watched that E3 demo so many times that as soon as the game came out and I played through the first prison level, which was the E3 demo, I knew absolutely everything to do. Like I had memorized it, I watched it, like loved it. Even going back, like if people are too young to remember this, or maybe you're old enough to remember this, on Xbox Live, you could download like trailers and stuff for upcoming games and have them saved to your hard drive to watch anytime you want. Yeah. And I did that for Gears, and I watched it like at least the original trailers and everything for the Mad World trailer. I still had on like download and just on repeat, just watching that initial trailer, and that just kind of started it. And I think Yeah, I don't even think I even knew the release date of the game. Like after watching so much about it, and maybe even like looking at magazines, because I think OXM was still a thing. Like I'm pretty sure I had subscribed to that at some point, and just looking at it and just seeing the game, and then like I went to my uncle's house one day and he was playing it. I was like, oh shit, this is out. And he was like, yeah. And so I asked for it for Christmas, the collector's edition, which I still have my original collector's edition behind me right here.
I see it.
That's the original collector's edition for the first game. And yeah, that started everything for at least my love of Gears, honestly.
So, stupid question.
Yeah.
I don't think you've ever officially stated it. Is Gears of War your favorite gaming series of all times?
Yeah, for sure. Like,
Yeah.
it's one thing I go back to extremely often.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not like feeling like I feel like I want to play something, but I'm not particularly feeling like when I was playing through Bloodborne or like even Resident Evil Village. When I sit down like I want to play something, but I don't really feel like playing these games, I'll load up any of the Gears games. More recently here, like Gears 5.
Yeah.
We'll just play a bit of that. Like whether it's multiplayer, whether it's just running around campaign for a little bit, like I'll jump into it and it'll just like scratch that itch a little bit.
Here's a question, and I know some people are on the fence with this one.
Right.
Which is the better controller, the original Xbox or the Xbox 360?
Like, are we talking the Duke controller on the original Xbox?
Yeah,
or are
the
we
Duke,
talking like
the original Duke.
Oh,
like, Big Daddy.
I mean, it's got to be the 360 controller. That was like one of the better design controllers out there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, I would even say, I would say the better design controllers because I really like the Xbox One and now the Xbox Series controllers. They actually feel really good to hold. Like, the main controller I use right now is the Elite controller. But like, if I had to pick between the two, it'd be the 360 because that was a good controller.
It was a good controller, the 360. I think the 360 was the better controller than the DualShock 3. I think that was a bit flimsy. Like
it was, and it also kind of felt a little too small, like in the grips.
Yeah,
of it. Like,
I agree.
Yeah.
Until I really like DualShock 4. Like,
that's a good controller.
It's a good sturdy controller. I even like the light bar on it and everything like that. I know it annoyed some people. I really liked it. And I didn't particularly like the base Xbox One controller. I wasn't a huge fan of it. It felt very flimsy, very light, like not much to it. But that's my opinion. But the Elite controllers feel great.
Oh yeah, the Elite Series 2 is my favorite controller ever made. I'll use it all the time, no matter what I'm doing. Whether I'm just like flipping through YouTube or Netflix or something like that, I'm still like got my Elite controller on and using it for some reason.
It's a fantastic controller. Feeling them in your hand, you're like, oh no, this feels good. Like you can feel the money kind of there in it because they're not cheap, but no controllers are.
No.
So we've gone into 360. We've gone into the first look at Gears of War. Obviously. There's been many Gears of War games. Gears of War 2 came out on 360 as well, didn't it? If I remember rightly. Yeah, but Gears 3, was that also 360 or was that moved on?
That was 360 as well. That one
was 360 as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you had the original trilogy, like 360. Like, so that would have been, how old were you been then?
Oh man. How long ago was that? I think the first Gears was 07. Oh man, let me do some maths. Because I don't even remember. Like, I'm about to be 30. I'm currently 29. I'll be 30 in August. So let's see.
Hitting the big 3-0. You excited?
Yeah.
Do you not care?
Oh, no. Okay, so that was 13 years ago. So I would have been 16.
So
roughly 16.
full on
quick.
teenager, get into the
Oh, yeah.
adolescent, the beginning of your adolescent years, and then
Mhm.
this gory as fuck chainsaw on the end of a machine
Yeah.
gun like comes out the lancer, and you get to
Mhm.
literally chainsaw Locust in half. Like,
Yeah. Like, what more do you need?
perfect timing. This game was
Perfect
designed for
timing.
you. Were
Absolutely.
you
Mhm.
were you on the GTA train at that point? Was that something that was you were interested in, or no, wasn't
No,
your thing?
because I'll blow some minds right now. I've never played GTA 3, San Andreas, or Vice City. I've never played
Really?
any of those games. Nope. I
Oh,
think
okay, okay.
my first GTA game was 4, and I barely played that at all. Like, I had it. I never finished the campaign. I don't even know if I even made it like halfway through that game. I don't remember anything about it. Like, I was like, okay, like, this is all right. It wasn't super great. It wasn't, you know, stretching the itch for me or anything until GTA 5, which is the only GTA game I've finished.
Oh, okay.
I'm like, yeah. So,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay. Okay. No,
Mhm.
hey, no, there's no shame in here. No game
Yeah.
shame in here at
The
all.
game changed.
But okay, so GTA wasn't
Mhm.
really on your radar. So
Oh,
your
no.
big ones were Gears of War and Halo were kind of taking up the majority of your time.
Yeah,
Is that
Gears of
right?
War, Halo, and about the same time, probably like Bioshock, Mass Effect, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Assassin's Creed, like
Yeah.
that one also kind of like took off a bit for me. Like at
Yeah.
least, yeah. I mean, Assassin's Creed, the original, I have all the achievements in. 2, I have all the achievements in, and then they started adding multiplayer and Brotherhood and Revelations. I'm like, no, thank
Yeah.
you, no, thank you.
Which is your favorite Assassin's Creed game
I mean,
that you've
man,
played?
favorite.
Yeah.
I know everybody says 2, but to be honest, maybe Brotherhood. Like, I like that
Brotherhood's very
idea
good.
of building your own like Assassin's Guild.
Mm-hmm.
Starting from scratch. I'm like building that up. Like, I was hoping that's what more Assassin's Creed games would turn into.
Yeah.
Because, like,
You kind of didn't.
yeah, they kind of went a little bit off that path. But I really enjoyed Assassin's Creed games until recently. Like, I think maybe Unity and Syndicate is where I was like, oh, okay, this is kind of going on maybe a little bit too long, and I'm kind of losing the story a bit. But like,
Mm-hmm.
I still have Odyssey, Valhalla. I beat Origins. I still probably need to go back and finish Odyssey before I start Valhalla. But yeah, I'm still a fan of the series, but not as big as I used to be
Mm.
in those games.
A difficult series, I think. Sometimes it goes through
Mm-hmm.
changes, obviously periods, and I know that if I'm right, that Origins, Odyssey, and Valhalla were a trilogy, and the game's going to evolve again going forward. I think the next game's supposed to be a very different style. Um, so obviously you had I really liked the combat
Mm-hmm.
from the original style, where it was like you could
Yes,
just dodge straight into a kill, and
right.
it was about that. I
Like,
don't like this leveling system where
no,
like I'm not a huge fan of that anyway. I would love it to go back to the old style of combat, but I don't know if they
yeah,
would do that now.
because like, I mean, the way it was pitched to me, like the original Assassin's Creed was Oblivion meets Hitman, right? Like,
Yeah,
kind of that style ish,
yeah,
um, which is not too far off. I mean, it's not like the RPG nature of Oblivion, but it's still kind of like
there was an
that
open
old
world
timey like
aspect
Hitman.
to
Yeah,
it. Yeah,
there was, and that obviously piqued my interest in playing at least the first Assassin's Creed. I really loved it. Like, it was more about that stealth than like hand to hand combat, which is kind of what Odyssey, Origins, and Valhalla's kind of turned into.
mm-hmm.
Which strays away from what Assassin's Creed really is a bit.
Yeah, and I think not to turn this into an Assassin's Creed podcast, I think that is a purposeful decision because this is set before they become assassins. So at this point, they're the hidden ones, and everyone that you meet isn't like, and everyone that you play doesn't necessarily become one or isn't one. They're just somehow tied to the story. I'm hoping the next set of games will close that gap. Like, because at no point in any of these are they called, is it the Assassin's Creed? Like, at no point.
Right, which
the Bureau doesn't exist.
Bit,
yeah, like, because it's before Altair, who is known as kind of like the father of the assassins. But the so I think that was a deliberate choice. But yeah, I think you're right. I prefer the older games more than the newer games, but I think the open world has got a lot better in the newer games to an extent, but there's too much horizontal travel and not enough vertical.
Yeah, which is what I loved about like the first couple.
Well, it blew my mind when it's like you can climb anything.
Right.
That wasn't a thing.
What? Yeah.
Like, I remember reading the magazine about Assassin's Creed, and I remember turning to my friend and said, "This would be one of the greatest games." I was like, "This will be the game. This is going to be a game changer." And he was like, "Nah, it looks okay. I'm not sure." And when we played it, we're like, "This is fucking incredible. Look at me climb this building."
Like, it made sense to have that like as an option. But
anyway, moving on through Assassin's Creed, because this isn't the Assassin's Creed podcast. This is the Vince Haley podcast.
Sure is.
We're at 360.
We're at 360.
We've now got a huge upgrade in gaming. We're going on to
major leaps.
The PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One.
Oh yeah.
I presume you went with the Xbox One.
Yep, that was a launch day purchase for me, as well as 5 different games. So,
and they were
Battlefield 4, Call of Duty Ghosts, because for some reason I want to play those on the Xbox. Assassin's Creed 4, because at the time I was still a huge Assassin's Creed fan, and Assassin's Creed 4 was very good.
Yeah.
Also, Rise, Son of Rome, which was basically a takedown mode for the Xbox One, but also still a very good game. Yeah, this is really good. Like, I really like that game. Shame it didn't pan out. Yeah. And also Dead Rising 3, because this was going to be the game I got into Dead Rising with. That didn't happen.
No.
I think I played maybe like an hour or 2 of it and didn't play it again.
You either love Dead Rising or you don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter how many iterations come out of that game.
No. Which, unfortunately, the series is kind of going down the shitter a bit. But that's fine. Yeah. Like, I wasn't the biggest fan of it anyway, but that doesn't matter. Anyway. Rise Son of Rome was actually really good. Like, I enjoyed that game more than I thought I was going to. But even then, I was still kind of hyped on it. But I think it was good. It was noticeable. And of course, we talked Assassin's Creed to death a little bit, but Black Flag is really, really good. Like, I'm glad I waited until like the Xbox One version of that was available, because they came out on 360 first, then later for the Xbox One. And then Call of Duty Ghosts and Battlefield 4. Wow, what a graphical difference between those 2 games. Because I played Battlefield 4 first because I was a huge Battlefield fan, spanning into the 360, going back a little bit with Bad Company and Bad Company 2. But man, that was a very good game. I even played it recently. I didn't really talk about it, but I played Battlefield 4 recently through the campaign mode. Pretty solid, I'm going to be honest. It wasn't that bad. But then Call of Duty Ghosts was... Game, Oh, yeah. But then compared to that, Call of Duty Ghosts looked like shit, even on Xbox One. at launch.
The game was not a good
No.
looking game.
That it was also not a very good game either.
Oh, not a great game.
From what I can remember, that was not a good game. Yeah. And that kind of expanded that.
That was your first foray into what was the next gen of gaming at the time.
Yeah, that was my entry point on the Xbox One and PS4 front.
Did you get a PS4 pretty close to that, or did you wait a few years, or whenabouts were you on the PS4 train?
It was pretty close. It may have been a year or two afterwards, because I came late to the PS3 party because I was a Xbox 360 guy, and towards the end of the generation, I had dusted off the PS3 I had gotten a few years after the 360, but never really touched much of. But then I got into God of War 1, 2, and 3 because they released that collection on there. Yeah. The Uncharted trilogy on there, and started catching up on stuff I'd missed. Obviously, The Last of Us on the PS3. And that got me really excited for hey, PlayStation's got some great games on it too. Because I used to be that guy. I was Xbox all the way. I'm just going to keep playing my Xbox. And then I gave PlayStation a chance and really loved a lot of the games there. Specifically The Last of Us, which very quickly became one of my favorite games of all time, and Uncharted. So I knew I was definitely wanting a PS4 at some point. And I did eventually get one because with that also picked up Infamous Second Son and probably a couple other games I can't really remember. Mm-hmm. So I really liked Infamous on the PS3 and Infamous 2. Yeah. So naturally, love those games. May as well pick up Second Son. Really enjoyed that. It wasn't too bad.
Yeah, it got shit on a little bit, but I thought it was a pretty okay game. But it was good.
Yeah. Good. And Killzone Shadowfall.
Of course.
That was, not bad. Very pretty game for the time.
Yeah, but for the time it looked really good, but wasn't that enjoyable to play, I didn't think.
No, especially using the touchpad to change weapons and stuff. Who thought that was a good idea?
Yeah, this was when PlayStation were please, somebody use this touchpad. The best use of the touchpad I've seen is Days Gone. Where
really?
Yeah, if you flicked it up, he'd pull out his map. If you flicked it right, you'd go to your inventory. If you swiped it left, you go to your missions, your story. If you swiped it down, you went to your journal or something, or crafting maybe. And you just swiped in the direction. Or you could just press it and it will come up with a little wheel and you could just use the analog stick if you forgot. But
that's
and
smart.
Even if you were on it, so let's say I swiped up to go to the map, but then I did want to go to my inventory, I could just then swipe left. I didn't have to come out of it and swipe again. It was just always fluid. It's probably the best use of it and the only one that actually needed it.
That's smart.
Yeah. So you had the PS4. Let's just jump back a little bit because we mentioned a game that I know that we both. Well, first of all, I really like the Uncharted series, incredible. God of War, obviously. We talk about that with Terry quite a bit as he's on his first playthrough of 2018's God of War. But The Last of Us.
Of course, yeah.
Was that your favorite game on the PlayStation 3? Was that the standout? You said it was one of your favorite games, so I presume that it's up there.
It is playing through The Last of Us for the first time was another one of those holy shit moments. This is what games can be. Mm-hmm. But I'd obviously played through a bunch of different story-based games, RPGs. We talked about Oblivion being the open world standard at the time of this is what games can do. But narratively, you look at what games there were, and at the time it was Uncharted, Uncharted 2, Uncharted 3, really kind of picking up being more narrative, but also being the Indiana Jones style game. And then I played Last of Us because, I played through like Uncharted 1, 2, and 3. It had the Naughty Dog name on it. I'd heard great things about it. So I figured, why not pick it up? And it was one of those moments where I was like, this is incredible. This is probably the best narrative experience I've ever had in a game. And before, I hadn't really experienced that because, I say Gears is one of my favorite game series of all time, which is somewhat story-light and even then doesn't have as big of an impact as The Last of Us had, or like same thing with Halo and even Oblivion and Assassin's Creed. Like they have those story moments. They have decent stories and pretty good stories for some of them, but nothing stood out as much as The Last of Us. So like that has to be like the definitive PlayStation 3 game for me. Even like to the point where I finished The Last of Us and immediately texted my uncle, who was also like Xbox at the time, like big Xbox fan. I was like, I know like we've built this kind of personality on being Xbox fans, but you have to play The Last of Us. Like I texted him like I knew my cousin had a PS3, but my uncle didn't. So I texted my uncle like, you have to play The Last of Us. It's so good. And then he texted me back like, okay. And then a couple of days later, he texted me back like it was literally like 2 days later. He's like, I finished it and I'm installing the DLC. I was like, yes, it's so good.
Yeah, I think it is probably one of those moments in gaming where you just stop and you go, what I'm witnessing is art. Like it's not even art, it's just everything coming together perfectly. Yeah. And there's games where you can look where some of it has come together. You look at like Fable.
Yeah.
Like that game had such a good story, like great character design, but it wasn't a perfect game by any way, shape or form. It was still finding its feet. You look at Halo and it's an almost perfect game.
Yeah.
The multiplayer is incredible. The stories, the start of what will become a saga, basically, for Halo. The character design, Master Chief, silent, like protagonist, which was quite common at the time because people didn't want to pay a huge amount of money for voice acting, and mocap wasn't really. It was basically just starting out at that time. But then you go through all these iterations. GTA, all of these were coming out, and they were great. Obviously, I can speak for that. You obviously can't at that time. They were great and everything. But then The Last of Us comes out, and you're like, this is not just a game. No. This is a full package. And yeah, I think that was when, and I spoke about it on my interview, which I'm not going to really go into, but I think it's the same with you, is where games went from being a huge part of my life, something that I knew I was going to do, but they were games. And then The Last of Us came out, and it's like, okay, this can be more. Because I want to talk about this. This is something that I am now going to think about. A lot of games I'd play, turn it off, go do what I was doing, and I was done. The Last of Us, I'd turn it off and I'd sit and think about the game.
Right. You'd have those moments where you like sit and dwell on it a little bit, like, what does this mean? Or can you believe what just happened right now? Or like, what implications is this going to have later? Like, it was that thing of like, I felt like, let me rephrase that. It felt like I had watched an entire series of television and was left completely satisfied with my experience. Like it transcended the entertainment medium like a whole other level. Like for me, The Last of Us is the point of where video games as entertainment can do more for storytelling than a lot of mediums out there. At least that's what I believe. Because
I agree, because you feel part of it.
Yeah, you are using The Last of Us as an example. You are Joel. His decisions and your decisions are one almost.
Yeah.
Like even if it's a cutscene and he's doing something you may or may not agree with, you're still in his shoes. You are still him,
and you have
and
to
it's
live
still
with the
happening.
repercussions. And
Right, it's taken upon you.
I agree.
Insanity. I love it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that was when, with the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One, I started to really take notice of like, okay, what are these companies making? And what prices were going up, and I'm like, what games am I going to want to play? Games Pass wasn't a thing fully yet. It was rumored. Obviously, I don't think, was it announced at the launch of Xbox One, or did it come a little bit later? I can't remember. But
it was for sure later. So I think Games Pass really started picking up steam more with towards the end of the Xbox One. Now, obviously, into the Series system.
Yeah. So, and I remember looking at the PlayStation 4 and the Xbox One about, okay, what are you bringing to the table?
Right.
And I think that was the first time, because I'd switched and which one I bought first, but I'd always had both of them. And occasionally a Nintendo chucked in there. But this was the first time where I was leaning towards PlayStation because they had just given me the Uncharted series, which I loved, God of War, which I loved, and then The Last of Us. And I was just like, okay. And 360 started really strong for me, but didn't end the strongest because there was a lot more cross-platform games, like which usually is at the end of a cycle, really. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to PlayStation 4. But I'm guessing you decided, like you said, you went to Xbox One. Like, and you stayed on the Xbox train. The Last of Us was good, but it wasn't like you were going to wait and see what was coming down the line for PlayStation. But the Xbox One had you straight away, like, this is where I'm going.
It is, because at the time the 360 had wowed me. Like, that's where I was going to get more Halo, more Gears, more of what I enjoyed, even like the multi-platform stuff, like Mass Effect or even Bioshock, which at the time I think Bioshock Infinite was on 360 anyway.
Yeah.
But I had still like backed up and believed in the Xbox brand. So I knew like when Xbox comes out, it's still going to be what I want to play, where I want to play it, no matter what is going to happen. Like I knew I was going to get a PlayStation 4 eventually because the PlayStation 3 had convinced me that like, hey, Xbox is doing great stuff, but also PlayStation is doing incredible stuff as well. So why not continue to play on both systems? Why not keep that going? And that's kind of been my thought process here, even into the new generation. Just skipping ahead only briefly, like I have a Series X, but I don't have a PS5. But I want a PS5 because I still want to experience Ratchet and Clank. I want to experience Horizon Forbidden West when it comes out. I want to experience Miles Morales on PS5, Demon Souls remake. Like I want to experience those games, but right now, like I'm mainly playing on my Xbox because that's one, what I could actually get my hands on, and two, like that's where I play mostly. Third party games is on my Xbox. Game Pass is on my Xbox. That's my primary console, even though like I like everything. You know?
I totally agree. I know we've gone into more detail anyway in previous podcasts about what we played on the last generation and moving forward. But quick, what were your highlights from the last generation of consoles on both? So on the Xbox One, the PlayStation 4. What were some of your highlights?
So main highlights, obviously Gears 4 and 5, mostly Gears 5 because I think that game is probably one of the best Well, to me, it's the best Gears game that's come out so far. Can't say anything Halo because nothing Halo recently has wowed me.
No.
Yeah. Last of Us Part 2 for sure. Recently, now that I finished Bloodborne on the PS4, fantastic game. Like, yeah, I'm in that camp of now that I've played Bloodborne and finished it, I love it. That's an incredible game and an incredible get by Sony. God of War, obviously, huge standout. Like when you look back at my history of like what games I've loved most, it's mostly going to lean towards PS4 because that's where all those incredible games came from. But there's also some of the multi-platform stuff, like Resident Evil 2 and 3 remake, Resident Evil 7. Like I really like those games. But yeah, there's like a huge category and a variety of games I actually absolutely loved on the Xbox One and PS4. I'm sure I'm forgetting a lot. But
sure.
Yeah.
Did you ever
not
play
on top of my head right now.
Sekiro? Or Sekiro, how it was announced.
Ooh, it's on the list. Like
that must be up your alley. It's a Souls-like game, isn't it?
Yeah, it's by FromSoft as well.
Person,
so yeah. It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen after Dark Souls 3.
Okay,
not to go off on too much of a tangent, but I'm going in release order. The Dark Souls 1, Dark Souls 2, Bloodborne, Dark Souls 3, Sekiro, Demon Souls remake whenever I get a PS5. So
the way to do it.
And then Elden Ring, but yeah. It's on the list.
Yeah. So we get to where we are now. Like and we're going to deviate away from gaming in a second. Well, kind of.
Right.
But if you were, let's say I didn't have a console.
Right.
I hadn't really played consoles, but now was my time to get into gaming. And I said to you, okay, what do these two consoles offer me? Like, we're going to take the Switch out of this one because that's its own entity in itself.
Yeah.
The Xbox Series X, the PlayStation 5, or Sony and Microsoft as they are now.
Yeah.
How would you describe them to someone who's just coming into that realm?
I mean, realistically, and I'm still going to say this as both an Xbox fan and a PlayStation fan.
Yeah.
With PlayStation, it's quality of games. So you got like your God of War, Last of Us, I guess Ghost of Tsushima because people like that game. You have a quality there that you don't find on the other consoles, really. I mean, Xbox is kind of trying, but we haven't seen that big wow moment from them like you have with The Last of Us and Uncharted and God of War. And as far as Xbox goes, it's quantity. Like Game Pass is a thing. It's a monthly subscription for everything. Well, just about everything Xbox. You get so much variety for what they're offering. From like good to great games, honestly. Again, it's nothing compared to what PlayStation is offering in terms of their quality, but there's still the games there.
I think it dips between the two, to be honest. I think there's some good quality. I think if you're looking at AAA, I think story-based games, then I think, PlayStation probably has Xbox trumped at the moment. But if you're looking at, like, for example, if I was going to play an RPG, I'm most likely going to play it on an Xbox. If I'm going to play a first-person shooter, I'm probably going to play it on an Xbox because you have better games. Even probably racing games. Horizon is one of my favorite racing games. If I want a story-based narrative action adventure, I'm going to play it on the PlayStation.
Maybe on PlayStation.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. And both are great. And I think that's the underlying factor. Both consoles are fantastic and both companies are doing amazing things. Some are doing other bits better than others, but that's just the way it is. But anyway, so we're up to date on your gaming.
Yep.
I send out a tweet.
Right.
saying that I want to start a podcast.
Yeah, you did.
Talking about gaming, and I had no clue what it was going to be, but I knew that I wanted to start. What made you take that jump?
What made me take that jump? It was a mixture of a few things, really. Like, it was that want to do this, first of all, because I knew I wanted to do like some kind of content creation, whether that be like YouTube, Twitch, whatever. And I also tossed around the idea of podcasting because, as probably our viewers out there are, and we both are kind of funny best friends. Like, we're listening kind of funny. I love listening to their talks, their discussions about life in general, and also about gaming. And I knew that's kind of like partially what I wanted to do because not only are those talks interesting to listen to, it's part of like interesting to talk about. And I've learned a lot from both you and Terry about games you like, games in general, and like all that kind of thing. So I kind of wanted to dip my toe into that and wanted to try and start something in that realm. The second part of it being is that because I wanted to do that, I said this before, and I'll repeat myself about it again. Gary Whitta was a big inspirational quote. If you're not making moves, you're standing still. And I was like, maybe this is the move I need to make in order to do this. Because one, am I going to be able to do, YouTube by myself, even like gameplay vids or whatever? Am I going to be able to do Twitch by myself so I'm not having someone to interact with as well? And I don't know anyone else really to start a podcast with. So like when you sent out that tweet, I saw, I was like, this could be the moment. This could be something. So I like slept on it because I think I responded like a day later.
Yeah.
And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do it, see what happens, whether this works out or not. We'll see. And here we are, going strong like
half
7 months
later.
in.
Yeah, man. Like, yeah, it was one of them. I was just, okay, I'm going to give it a go. This is the year. I'm going to give it a go. And I put that tweet out, and I didn't expect anyone to respond. But I was hoping people would. And then Perry was the first person to respond. And then we had Blake and Destiny, who were with us for the pre-launch, where we were doing tests, and their timings couldn't really work out. But then there was yourself the next day, and the worry was that there was going to be no chemistry and nothing that could work, and we're all going to have different humors or different ways of doing things that just wouldn't work together. And we were coming from an environment where I had met Terry once at a kind of funny meet and greet. We were told where to sit for breakfast, basically. So he ended up on my table, and there's 4 of us there, kind of just talking about games. And me and Terry riffed off each other a little bit, but at that point, I wasn't even thinking about doing this. This was maybe the beginning of 2019. It's when they did the world tour.
Okay, yeah.
So I can't remember when that was, but it was after. I'm trying to think when it was. It was which kind of funny year? It might have been year 3, maybe 3.0, 4.0. I'm trying to think. Anyway, so Terry had jumped on, and I was just like, okay, cool. And then obviously you'd come on, and we did the trial runs with Destiny and Blake and everyone on the screen, and it was mainly just working out how the fuck to do this audio wise, camera wise. So there was no real back and forths, but you could tell there was something there. You could tell there was, okay, there's an understanding. We kind of know what we're doing without knowing what we're doing. So when the 3 of us, and when Blake and Destiny said their timings couldn't work and they weren't going to be able to do it, which is which was a shame because they were really great people.
Right.
I was like, okay, Terry and Vince going to want to do this as a trio. Like, and when everyone was like, okay, well, here we go. Let's, so we were just about to record, I think. We were just about to do one of our test runs. We're like, okay, let's see how this goes as a trio. And I was worried because I was just like, oh, okay, this could be make or break now. Is this going to work as a trio of three people that have barely know each other and are now going to start a business and do a podcast together, and we're going to be a big part of each other's lives multiple times a week.
Especially there at the beginning. It was
at the beginning
multiple times
filming. It was 4 times a week. We would do the weekend plus 3 days during the week. We didn't know what we do. We hadn't even thought about stacking the shows. Then we had multiple shows, which we're still dabbling with. But we realized the one we love doing the news because we can fully talk about games, talk about all the new stuff, and it's great to learn from as well, because I learned so much from you guys about games that I don't know much about.
Right.
And it works all the way. But the podcast was this place where we could come together, and I just found myself looking forward to the podcast because I was like, you know what, it's gonna go somewhere, and I'll enjoy it. Like, and it has never failed. Even tonight, where Terry was trying to get back in time, something came up, so he couldn't make it, and we were waiting, and we're like, well, here we go, the two of us, and off we go. And what's great is any combination can do that.
Yeah.
And
we feed out each other extremely well at times. It's amazing that we went from like not knowing each other. I think you were the only one that I actually followed on Twitter when I reached out to you. And then now we sit together now 2 times a week and make great content for hours. And it's wild that we went from not knowing each other to now being as close as we are. It's amazing.
Exactly. And we troubleshoot everything. It's an open discussion where if something's shit, we say it's shit, and if something's good, we say it's good. And I usually throw stuff at you guys, and you guys will either say or nope, and then I go back to the drawing board, and I do a lot of the tech side of things. So and I thought I knew about tech, and I can do software stuff very well, but my fucking god, this is a new world. Like, and I'm like, what do I do to even get it to work? It was like, okay, I think I kind of know what I'm doing, and it is a slow process. And then you guys, like, it's getting comfortable on camera, which I think we all did pretty quickly.
For sure.
Where I kind of forget the camera's on, and we just start going and doing the podcast. And I think doing stuff like campaign mode and obviously Sunday Fun Day Challenge on the news when it was me and you really got us to let down those barriers, because what it got us to do was insult each other.
Yeah.
Like, and just to rip each other to shreds and be able to stop the recording and just say, actually, I really agree with everything you said, and you should win this week. And have that honesty underneath, and not, there's no egos. Like, anyone can say, can I host tonight? And that would be absolutely fine. And we throw the hosting around like a lot of the time.
Wow.
And because obviously the show that you did host, we don't do at the moment. It's on hiatus. So we have the 2 shows. We kind of leave Terry to host the news because the format needs to be the same. But the podcast we throw around, we do different formats. We play. There isn't really a host of the podcast. It's whoever does the intro and then chat shit for 2.5 hours and then say goodbye at the end.
Off to the races.
Off to the races. And we've just done our first E3, and these are really cool moments. And I look back on it now, and it feels like we've been doing it sometimes it feels like we've been doing it a long time, and also it feels like we've barely been doing it. And if you look behind me, I've got Shifty Crab merch on the wall, Shifty Crab merch here. If I didn't get pissed wet through in the rain today, I was wearing a Shifty Crab t-shirt. Like, my family talk about it. Like when you weren't on for a couple of episodes, my mother-in-law is like, "Where's the best beard in the business?" My niece and nephew, when I go to see them, say, "Uncle Adam, we watched you on YouTube." I was like, "Okay, but don't." I was like, "Don't. You're like 6 years old. Do not watch the podcast.
No, don't watch the podcast. Stay away."
And those moments are so cool when my family are invested in yours and Terry's lives. Yeah. Even though you're in America, like I'm over here, but at the same time, we have this little circle that is there. Whether we're just talking in Slack about life, whether we're talking about games, or when we sit down and we, like today, where we talk an hour and a half before we even film.
Yeah. Well,
to put into context, it is 1:15 in the morning here, and we start recording. We started recording today about 10 to 11. Started on the call, and it's just incredible.
Wow.
So this is, I suppose, these interviews are for the fans to get to know us, and for us to kind of just, it's like a thank you to each other, I guess, in a way, just to say, and you know what? This is the trio that is at the beginning of Shifty Crab. Whatever Shifty Crab becomes or doesn't become, or where it is, this is there.
Yeah.
Rose to this. Like, hopefully down the line we bring more people on board and they join. The Crab's now got a name of Shifterton.
Shifterton.
I'm already working on a new t-shirt that might say Shifterton. Don't fuck with Shifterton. Like,
it's so good.
I am working on it. I've started to draw up some ideas, so it's on its way. But you know what? I'm just proud of. I'm proud of you and Terry and myself to get us to where we are, where we can almost record the podcast with our eyes closed.
Right.
I can turn up a minute before I need to record, press record, and obviously sometimes we have a bit of things in place. And we can press record and talk for 2 hours and be able to get content out of it. So thank you, Vince, for being a part of Shifty Crab.
Oh, thank you for putting out a tweet and building this for what it is. It's been
and it is something.
Yeah. You know what it is? Always a pleasure, never a chore.
Well, on that note, Vince, I think this is the perfect. What's the word I'm looking for? The perfect, what they call drawing pin, the little pin to put in your life, like life lessons, and I'm sure there'll be more to come down the line.
I'm sure.
But I thank you for being here. Thank you for doing this interview last minute.
Oh yeah, thank you for coming up with questions very quickly on the spot. Last minute.
That's what was next on the games list, really. And what did you play next? Well, and next. It's not too hard.
Yeah. We got there.
Yeah. As a reminder, guys, you can catch us on the news on Friday. And we will be back next week as a trio. Maybe delving back into Emily's Away. Maybe not, because we'll see. We'll see, but if it's not next week, it will be the week after when we delve back into a new game. But I have been Adam. This has been the best beard in the business, Mr. Vince Haley. Thank you very much, Vince. You've already said always a pleasure, never a chore, so you have to say something else.
I have to say it. Oh no, Shifterton, don't fuck us.
Don't fuck us, Shifterton, at all.
Yeah.
And you've been you, and as always, stay shifty.